Stuck in negative patterns with your spouse? This is what one couple in Intimacy Mastery had to say. Our communication had broken down. Through the monthly workshops and coaching, we learned to address issues constructively using our Intimacy Mastery roadmap. Don't wait. Visit intimacymastery.com.
From Naples, Florida, this is a One Extraordinary Marriage show, where being busy is overdone, romancing is fun, and scheduling sex has taken the guesswork out of wondering when you're going to get some. I'm Tony DiLorenzo, your co-host, along with my beautiful wife, Elisa. From coast to coast and around the world, thank you for joining us. It's time to talk sex, love, and commitment. Give us a call or text us on the Hug Hotline at 858-876-5663, or send us an email to hugs@oneextraordinarymarriage.com. In today's episode, we're addressing how to have the conversations about sexual intimacy that most couples avoid, and why asking the right questions can completely transform your connection in the bedroom.
And William Paisley had this to say about communication. He said, communication is the fuel that keeps the fire of your relationship burning. Without it, your relationship goes cold. And I think as we're discussing sexual intimacy, I would take that one step further and say that without communication, your sexual intimacy fires will also go cold without discussions. But we start every episode with a hug, and a hug is really an opportunity for us to celebrate what the two of you are doing and how you're taking action in your marriage. And this hug comes from a post that was in the One Family Facebook group that had attached to it this sweet picture of two look like maybe Adirondack chairs with towels over them. And one of the things that Tony and I noticed about the towels is that these were towels that were actually given away at one of the first six pillars in Paradise marriage getaways. Mm-hmm. And the attached comment said, Mrs. B and I have had some recreational relaxation intimacy time this Sunday morning. We touched on a couple other intimacies as well. After a several-month transition into a totally new chapter for us, it was great to spend relaxed pool time, making sure we are on the same page about some things and taking the time to stay connected.
Yeah, it's so awesome. And one of the things with those beach towels, we have the next six pillars that see marriage getaway coming together. So be on the lookout for that, because when it goes up, we are going to sell this thing out. We are going to have an amazing trip at sea. Mm-hmm. You'll get to know all the information, but keep your eyes out for that.
Absolutely. And, as Tony said at the very top of this episode, we're addressing how to have those conversations about sexual intimacy. And truth be told, talking about sex, especially a married couple, talking about sex isn't really something that most of us grew up learning how to do. I mean, Tony and I are in our early 50s. I don't recall ever hearing my parents talk about sex. I know that there was never a conversation where my mom sat me down and said, hey, here's how you're going to have these conversations with your future husband. That didn't happen.
I think the conversations that maybe you had or I had more were with peers in that context. There was never, but it never was modeled, right? The conversation of sexual conversation was never modeled. And understandably, that can be a very touchy topic for parents, and how do I do that, and what does that look like? So if your parents didn't talk to you about it or anything, no harm, no foul. And yet, we here in the One Family, we need to be able to talk to each other, one another, our spouse, about sex.
Absolutely. And, one of the things I was also going to say is that it's not just those of us that are in our 50s that, haven't really seen this or haven't developed this skill. I talk to a lot of couples as a marriage coach, couples in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and you don't necessarily have the skill either. And please hear me, there is no judgment, because before Tony and I started the One Extraordinary Marriage show, we didn't know how to have these conversations either. Mm-hmm. Right. So this is not a judgment place, but it's one of those things that we hear often. We don't know how to talk about what we want sexually. I don't know how to bring up what I'd like to try. We've been married all of these years, fill in your number, and I'm still guessing about what my spouse enjoys. And, even thinking about this episode, I realized that there are probably more conversations about what you're going to watch on Netflix on any given, Friday night, Tuesday night, or whatever, than what you're going to, what you want to do sexually.
And this all brings up what we talked about last week, with the art of the tender topic.
Definitely a tender topic.
Right. And I just want to bring those two together because last week we really didn't talk as much of the sexual side of things. And yet this is one of those tender topics for some couples. I'm not saying for all, but there can be times, even in a healthy sexual intimate relationship with your spouse, there can be times when it's like, well, I'd like to spice things up. And it can be a tender topic here.
And please know that our heart and what we believe for all of you is that it's not that you don't want great sexual intimacy. It's that you don't know how to have the conversations without feeling awkward or vulnerable or worried that you're going to say the wrong thing or hurt your spouse's feelings. And, we know even for ourselves that learning to ask better questions in a marriage actually goes a long way to creating transformation. Like, we didn't ask good questions, you guys. If you look at like the first probably, 14, 15.
I would say, don't forget, 11 years in, we did our 60-day sex challenge. So I think at that point
that was probably the starting point.
At that point in time, I would say that was our catalyst. Now, were we engaging each other in our emotional intimacy to talk about our sexual intimacy? I wouldn't say we were in those earlier years of that transition and transformation we were having. And yet we began those conversations. I would say it was probably after our 15th anniversary where things began to open up a bit more.
And we're getting ready to celebrate 29. Yeah. So just do the math that there were a lot of years. And I want to point those two numbers out to you, not because 29 is significant or 15 is significant, but just like long periods of time. Right? Where we didn't have the skills, we were developing the skills. It's been this 14-year journey, right, for us to even get better at this. And it was one of those things where we started going, well, what are the questions that we're asking one another? And it ultimately led to a resource called 19 Questions to Amazing Sex that we created first and foremost for ourselves and then shared with all of you. And you can pick that up if you haven't gotten it already at oneextraordinarymarriage.com/19Q.
Now, that is a free resource that we are giving you. So if you go to oneextraordinarymarriage.com/19Q, enter your email and get the 19 Questions to Amazing Sex Marriage Guide. And this is going to help you ask and answer those questions that you may not know how to ask. Some of the questions may be there that you've had in your head. And you're like, and yet, when you have the guide, and I will say, Elisa and I have used this guide for ourselves, where we print it out and we use it because it helps us, it allows us to have some structure within the conversation we're having.
So we're actually going to model for you guys in this episode, asking and answering some of these questions. But before we do that, I want to share why it matters. Because I think what happens is people are like, hey, we're good. Like it's not a big deal that we don't talk about this. But when couples start to avoid or have always avoided conversations about sexual intimacy, you have some pretty significant impacts. First, you get into this place where your intimacy is all assumption based, right? Where you assume that you know what your spouse wants and they assume that they know what you want. And then you can just be in this place where everybody's making assumptions and nobody's talking about it. And you just kind of go, okay, well, you know what? Now I'm just frustrated because I'm not getting what I want and you're not getting it. And like all of this disconnect starts to happen. And with that, you can start get into this place where you feel unfulfilled. Because again, I've got these wants, I've got these desires. I'm assuming you know what I want, but I'm not actually talking about it. So I'm just feeling frustrated and unfulfilled. And that starts to create this roller coaster, which is more like a straight line and not a roller coaster because there's no excitement or anticipation. It's just kind of like, it's like we were in a mall last week when we were in San Diego, and there was a train that was going around the mall, right? One of those little kiddie trains. And it was just like on this flat track. Not super exciting, way predictable. Woo, woo. Like that was all that was happening. And I think for some couples, when they aren't talking about their sexual intimacy, it's kind of like that train, right? It's so routine, so predictable. You're doing the same position at the same time with the same outcome, right? You're just in this place where it's like that train going around the mall. And you're like, well, yeah, I mean, that's cute. The kid's excited to get on it the first time, but after like the third time you've been at the mall, you're like, yeah, whatever. Mm-hmm. And what also then starts to happen is you don't have the connection that comes out of your sexual intimacy, and that really doesn't build any emotional intimacy between the two of you. And so you're in this place where you just feel more and more distant. Maybe you're in a place too where you get to a point where you're just like, why are we even doing this?
And let's not even start the discussion with different seasons of life. Like children, having children, raising children, job transitions, perimenopause. We've talked about it for even guys, the hormonal changes that begin to happen in here. And every one of these happens in different seasons in our marriage. Mm. And so understanding that no matter where you are right now, you can step in and engage one another in your emotional and sexual intimacy. Mm-hmm. And using the 19 Questions to Amazing Sex Marriage Guide just gives you something to follow along. Because too many times, I think many of us, and I can say I'm one of those too, where it's like, I want to ask a question, but then do I ask it now? Because really, is it the right time? And we can feel stuck. And just as Elisa said, with each and one of these, it's just even it becomes routine or whatever may be going on. We got to get out of that stuckness that we're in. Mm-hmm.
So, like I told you a few minutes ago, we're actually going to model asking and answering some of these questions, because when couples learn to ask the right questions and create a space for honest answers, so much changes, right? Because then you get to know your spouse on a deeper level. You get to create the anticipation. You get to break out of the routine and the boredom and actually create these places where you feel closer together. Remember, the definition of intimacy is closeness and connection, right? And the way that happens is getting to know and then being able to actually bring that to your encounters. So in what ways
this is your first question we're going to go over. And this is in the 19
questions.
This
is the 19 questions. Yeah, yep, I pulled it straight out.
Yep, okay.
Pulled it straight out. In what ways do you show me that you are initiating sex? Now, I'm going to give you a second to think about it. Because I want to just say why a question like this is so important. This is me putting on my coaching hat. From personal experience, I know that if you don't actually discuss how you initiate sex and you tend to be more subtle, that your spouse can actually miss the signals that you're giving that you're initiating, because your spouse, as wonderful as they are, does not have ESP. And what is super obvious to you could be completely missed by your spouse. It's why asking this question and sharing it sharing your answers is so important. So with that,
in what ways do you show me that you are initiating sex? So in what ways am I showing you that I initiate sex? I think I have two ways right now. I think one is just sort of that flirty, sexy text. Mm-hmm. I think that's one. It sort of comes and goes, but I do tend to use that, especially when you are in coaching sessions or things are just happening throughout the day. It's easy for me to connect with you and be like, hey, sexy, how about you and me tonight, sort of thing. I find that's one way I do it. And then the second way I think that I do it is more from how about like, it's more about like, I'm looking at what's going on, what's happening. And then it's more about like, how about you and me here tonight or something. And that's vocalized.
Yeah,
like,
that was just last night.
Yeah. And I think those are the ways that I'm initiating with you. Mm-hmm. Other ways that can happen is a little romance throughout the day. I think this is where I'm missing some things, and I need to get back in stride here, is romancing you throughout the day, because there are times when I just show up in bed naked and I'm like,
also a true story.
Hey baby doll, like you and me tonight. And so I think I could do a little better there, because I think when I do that, I catch you off guard, because
Sometimes.
you're sort of like, oh, I thought we were just going to bed. And I've been thinking,
And I just know as soon as you just said that like that there are people all over this world hearing that going, yep, me too.
yep.
Me
So
too.
so that's what I would say.
For me, I think it's definitely, and this will get into a different question, but when I am very strategic about my underwear or lingerie, for sure, that's a way of initiating. And then sometimes I've gotten, in the almost 29 years that Tony and I have been married, I've gotten way more direct. So sometimes I will just like walk into a room completely naked.
Yep.
That's a very strong overture that like, hey, I'm here to distract you right now.
Yes. And that is Elisa initiating, and that has happened recently. And I'm just sort of like, oh, okay, hold on. Let me, wasn't expecting that. And so, but that is one way that you have been initiating. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And when you go back and forth with these questions, I mean, I want to encourage you as you're talking about your sexual intimacy, and I maybe should have said this at the very beginning, is have these conversations outside of the bedroom, right? Because there's so much charged energy around your sexual intimacy. It gives space for both of you to ask and answer the question. And again, get into a place where you're going to answer the question. And it may take a few times when your spouse has given you, told you how they're initiating, and maybe you don't pick up on it because it is more subtle, or you were distracted. And that's where keeping the communication open and having multiple conversations, talking about your sexual intimacy and what's working, is not a one and done conversation. It is a multiple, lifelong, you will have many conversations about this over the course of your marriage. We've got a couple more questions, and we're going to talk about those after this break. This episode of the One Extraordinary Marriage Show is brought to you by Alloy Women's Health. Aging can be hard for women. Problems sleeping, hot flashes, brain fog, weight gain, and decreased libido can hit us pretty hard. I'm in the menopause journey myself and have dealt with symptoms like hot flashes and insomnia. I've used Alloy for about 4 months now and love how easy it is to discuss symptoms and side effects with my doctor and get prescriptions delivered right to my door. Alloy can help you to thrive during menopause and midlife, offering unlimited access to doctors and experts with safe, science-backed treatments for your hormonal symptoms, as well as skin, hair, and sexual wellness treatments. I cannot recommend Alloy enough. Join the 95% of women who tried Alloy and saw relief in the first 2 weeks. Head to myalloy.com/OEM and tell them all about your symptoms, and you'll get a fully customized treatment plan. And you'll get $20 off your first order today. Head to myalloy.com/OEM and enter code OEM to get $20 off your first order.
Mochi Health is a long-term weight loss solution personalized to fit your unique needs and goals. Meet one-on-one with board-certified obesity doctors and registered dietitians who are on a mission to listen. Eligible patients can access custom-formulated GLP-1 medications at an affordable, set price and get them delivered to their home each month. No insurance required, FSA and HSA accepted. With 24/7 customer service available, Mochi Health is here to partner with you on your journey to a healthier life. Take the free quiz at joinmochi.com and use code AUDIO40 at checkout for $40 off your first month of membership. That's joinmochi.com.
We're back. And we're discussing how the right questions can transform your sexual intimacy, going from that assumption-based connection into this place where it's intentional and satisfying intimacy for both of you. And we've been talking about some of the questions that are on the resource guide, the 19 questions to amazing sex. And if you haven't picked it up, go to oneextraordinarymarriage.com/19Q to get yours. And so the next question, I'm actually going to be on the receiving end. I will let you.
Let me ask it first. Okay.
Yeah.
And these questions that, again, like Elisa said, these aren't all the questions. Obviously, there's 19 of them. And one thing I want to say before I ask this question to Elisa and then answer it myself is, you may take a couple of these questions, a few of these questions, and ask and answer one another. Or you may take all 19 and take a good chunk of your day going through it, because that's what you want to do. However you choose to use this guide is up to you. And some questions, and I'm going to put this out there real quick, some questions you may mark off altogether. There is nothing that says you have to ask and answer every single question on the guide. I just want to make that clear because we get people who go like, well, why would you ask this question? Some people will. Some people won't. It's okay. Question number 2, we're going to ask and answer here today. How much time would you like to spend during foreplay?
So I've got a couple answers to this question. There are times when I definitely enjoy a quickie. And so what is that? What was that? Like what was that?
Nothing.
No. True confessions. Why did you just do that?
I feel, and this is what I feel, is that has become more common in the recent past.
Really?
Yes, it has. Don't really me.
No. Oh, welcome to climbing inside Tony and Lisa's head. You don't think we're spending a lot of time on foreplay?
There are some times we are, but I feel that on your part, you can sort of get the like, all right, let's get this over with sooner than later. But keep going. Keep going.
Okay.
Let's go.
All right. So that's the quickie answer.
Yes.
Apparently, Tony and I are going to have a conversation about this after this episode. For me, like, it's so funny to say that because I was totally going to be like I enjoy having foreplay because it helps to get me in the mood. But now my head's going, but he just said you're not spending a lot of time on foreplay.
No, I'm just saying there have been, and this could be just in the recent past. There are times when we do spend, like, again, seasons.
Sure.
What's going on? There have been times when foreplay is extended, elongated. I'm just saying in the recent past, I feel like foreplay has been cut down because you have been more in a mood of like, all right, let's just have this quickie. So not to say we're not having foreplay. That's not what I'm saying here. I'm just saying in the recent past, I feel like it's been more of a like, okay, like let's just move forward. But again, the question though is how much time would you like to spend during foreplay?
Can I just say this is why it's a really good idea to ask and answer these questions?
Because you
can have two different perceptions.
Right, because a quickie and foreplay, I don't know, go together very well. Because
but my
foreplay,
the point of bringing up the quickie was that sometimes I don't need any foreplay time. That was why I brought it up.
True,
and that there
where
are times where it's like an extended session is pretty amazing.
Well, a quickie isn't. There's no foreplay to
there
it.
There could be foreplay,
honey. You get the Uber lube out. You're like, I need some Uber lube, which is fine.
True.
I'm okay.
Hormones.
I'll put a link here for Uber lube for anybody who wants to grab it. It is our favorite lube. But when I read this question, how much time would you like to spend during foreplay? A quickie to me isn't included in that because there isn't much foreplay going on. True. I mean,
I guess as a woman, I think like I can't just go from 0 to nothing even during a quickie, even with Uber Lube, and so it's like there's got to be a little something.
True.
Okay.
I understand that, but the little something is okay. So let's ask this way. Let's ask this question in two different ways.
Okay.
How much time would you like to spend during quickie foreplay? Right, because now you're saying that there's
now we've
time.
just coined a brand new term. Everybody's gonna be like
quickie foreplay.
Quickie.
So how much time do we need to have there? And then how much time would you say for and I'll call this a sexual encounter, which is beyond a quickie? How's that sound?
I love the phrase quickie foreplay. I can see people all over the world now going quickie foreplay. That's what we're doing today.
So
I think quickie foreplay is like probably a couple minutes.
Right.
We're extended, and would you call it an extended encounter? We've got all these great words now. I think you called it an extended encounter.
Yeah, extended encounter, sure.
Given that I don't look at the clock in the same way that you do,
I have not looked at the clock in a long time.
Okay, well that's good to hear because at one point in time you knew you were like down to the minute.
But I'm just saying I have not.
Yeah, I don't know what an extended encounter is, but like time wise.
Oh, okay.
No, like I know what that is, but
Okay.
I don't know if we're talking 10 minutes or half an hour or I mean. We probably never go past half an hour. Like that feels.
Yeah, I think that would be rather long for us. Not to say it's not for others.
Yeah.
I mean, so
I don't know that I have like minutes.
Okay.
Because I don't keep a stopwatch by the side of the bed.
okay. So how about
I feel like I've answered this question. Like a couple minutes to
yeah,
depending on.
yeah. I mean, extended foreplay would be for you. I would say to the point of orgasm.
Yes, and sometimes
And sometimes that could be like last night. It
sometimes
was like
that happens faster
Right.
than at other times. And
like last night, I would say, because we'd been traveling and everything, we hadn't been sexually intimate because we were just sleeping in different places, this, that, and the other. Not really a lot of alone time per se, in people's homes and this, that, and the other. So I would say last night was still an amazing foreplay encounter. It was just a little bit quicker because we hadn't been sexually intimate in maybe about a week or so.
Right.
You also had your period and this, that, and the other.
it was everything.
So, okay. So that's good.
Do you have a different answer to that question?
Time-wise, I think when I think of this one, I feel like we have many different. We do have some different timings, and it is interesting that you bring this up.
Now that the shoe is on the other foot, it feels a little.
No. I'm just saying we have different timings.
Absolutely.
When it comes to foreplay, at the end of the day, I think, is it satisfying to us in that time frame? And sometimes it is longer because you and I we're tired, we're stressed. It takes us longer to get even in the mood. And I've noticed that at times. And it's taking you a little bit longer to get aroused. It's taking me longer to get aroused. And so I think for you and I, it's just being conscious of what's happening in our lives. So that way the foreplay lasts, or is the experience of foreplay is good for both of us in that period of time we're in. Mm-hmm. I guess is the way I would say it. Well, at the end of the day, it works for you and I feel like. I do think there are just times when I should speak up and I have not, especially when we get into a roll of quickies. But that's something I need to work on.
Well, and I think it's also having those conversations around perception of time. Mm-hmm. Right? What does that look like? But let's get on to another question. Mm-hmm. What would you like to see me wear or not wear? And I do want to say, one of the reasons why I love that this question is on here is one, again, because that can change over the course of a marriage, course of time that the two of you are married. But there is, I know a lot is made about the fact that men are visual creatures, but I do think that women are as well.
I do too.
Right. And so, it might not be the boxers, or, it might just be like, dang, when you're dressed up in a suit and tie, you just look so amazing. Right. And it's just being able to have that conversation. It's being able to say, hey, do I prefer you wearing something that, like, I love the color, or do I prefer, completely naked? It's getting into this place of saying, what are my preferences and what does that look like? Because when I know Tony's favorite colors that he loves to see me in. I just know it. And so when I'm thinking about underwear and that type of thing, I pick the colors that I really like, and I pick the colors that Tony really likes. And what does that mean? It means Elisa has a lot of underwear. But it's also fun because I know, even as part of that foreplay and romance, that I can tell him what I'm wearing, and we can get into this place. So, Mr. DiLorenzo, what would you like to see me wear or not wear?
You know what? Just the other week we were talking, you're looking at, grabbing some new panties, and you were very receptive because you're looking at them, and I was like, I like those pairs, and you bought a handful of them. Mm-hmm. And then that...
So that was based on style, just looking at different cuts of underwear. That's what he's referring to.
And then that the lingerie piece that we bought some time ago, which is...
My Amazon piece?
Your Amazon piece, yeah. And I'll put a link to it here as well, because it's just cool. I love that one because, one, I love the color. Two, it's a string panty, like a string thong bikini, whatever it is. I don't know what you call it.
I just love that you put like That was like a mashup of underwear, string, thong, bikini,
I don't know
something. I don't know. It's got like very little
something.
material is what he's trying to tell you people.
But what I do love about that one is that it's covered in the front, and then there's the lace in the back.
Yeah, it's
and
like a knit front with a lace back.
And it's really soft and everything, which I know you like, and the lace back is amazing. So that's what I would say. For you?
I love seeing you in blue. You know, it was really interesting when we were just travel. Tony generally wears blue when we travel. If you see Tony day to day, he's in a black t-shirt and his shorts. Like that's his uniform. But when we travel, he tends to pull out his blues a little bit more. Or when we speak, he's typically in blue. And for a gal who didn't recognize that her future husband had blue eyes until they'd been dating for about 3 weeks, it is amazing how Tony's blue eyes really do pop when he's wearing blue. So that is always a great color on you on the day-to-day. When we're talking specifically about like into sexual intimacy and things like that, I'm good with you being naked. It's not like boxers or anything like that don't necessarily change my arousal level. And so like I like texture. So if it's like silky or something like that, like the texture matters to me more than just like, oh, you're wearing a pair of underwear like that. So that is me. But it's a conversation for the two of you to have.
And that's good. And that helps me, honestly, because I'd been thinking about that. I'm like, do I need to like buy some new underwear? Do I need to find something that's sexy that, you know, makes you go, ooh, like Tony's like getting ready for our sexual experience. So knowing that and hearing that is helpful for me.
Yeah. And that's why you have these conversations. And I would say, you know, get the guide, because when you start to have these conversations and you're having the conversations outside your bedroom, maybe on a walk and talk, and you're in this place where it's just like, I'm just going to be curious about you. I just want to know where you are now, whether you've been married, 2 weeks or 22 years. And knowing that we're not going to have just a one and done conversation. When you get into that place and you get enough reps on having these conversations, because that's what it is. It's why Tony and I can have the conversation now. And even still, you might have heard just a little squirming or like, hey, wait a minute, what do you mean by that? But when you do the reps, you get into this place where there is an increase in satisfaction because you know what the other person wants. You aren't playing this assumption game. You're getting into, oh, I understand what you like and what you want. And that reduces frustration and takes the guesswork out of what's happening in the bedroom. And that increase in emotional intimacy is going to increase your connection across your marriage. And then you can develop more variety or creativity because you aren't just doing the same thing over and over again. And I will tell you, when you can read those initiation signals, all kinds of goodness starts to happen because you're literally picking up what your spouse is putting down, and that becomes a game changer for the two of you.
Yep. And as we come to a close here, I just want to say I did add the sexy nightgown lingerie link that I was talking about there, because it's awesome, and I think many of you will love it. And to this end, pick up the 19 Questions to Amazing Sex Marriage Guide, oneextraordinarymarriage.com/19Q. Let's strengthen our 6 pillars of intimacy. As the one family, as a couple, no matter where you are, grab it. Ask your spouse to answer 1-2 questions just like we did today. Take some time, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, go on a walk and talk, go for a drive. Take some time out at the pool this summer. Go somewhere where you're alone. Maybe it's in the evening at the fire pit when the kids are asleep. Do something this week that can allow each of you to get to know one another better. Because I will tell you, just Elisa and I doing this affirms what we know, and yet also opened up some like, okay, where are we needing to step in to strengthen our own sexual intimacy? And so with that, we're excited for you. Share, give us a hug, send in a hug, because we'd love to know how this is transforming you and your marriage. You guys have yourselves a fantastic week. Love you guys. Thank you for listening to the One Extraordinary Marriage Show. If you love this podcast, please leave a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you are listening. Your review helps others find the show and know that it's the right fit for them and their marriage.